once a group of poor Freemasons came from Holland, I think. There was a great party given for them, and the hat was passed so that people would put money in the hat. He was beginning to work as a pharmacist. He had very little money, but he gave a gold coin, and all the others gave copper. He decided that Freemasons were not for him, and he quit. My grandmother was very lively. She told us stories. She even sang sometimes, and she was strong. She was strong. She had a great willpower, and she was up to a point domineering. Sometimes she liked to manipulate my father and perhaps even myself. But I still think of her with great pleasure. I have very good, very fond memories of her.
Which set was connected to Andorra?
My grandfather on my father's side was the son of a citizen of Andorra. I never knew exactly about this this man whose name was Duran Dupuy, and obviously he had a French side because of his second name, which is French. I think he was a businessman. I heard all sorts of rumors. I heard that sometimes he was engaged in some kind of contraband, like many people in Andorra. He died a rich man, but somehow his fortune was stolen, and we don't know how. There are many mysteries attached to this Andorran branch of the family. In any case, being descendant of an Andorran was helpful to us in France during the war, because we had a little document from some judge in Andorra saying that Andorra would protect us against all enemies. Of course, Andorra had no army, no air force, no navy, and no way of protecting anybody against anybody. But the document was very forceful, and we liked to carry it around just in case.
And that's what allowed you to get across the border into France, wasn't it?
It was of some help.
Tell us about the time when you met your wife and the year afterwards in Paris. I haven't heard much about that.
Well, I think she should talk more about it, and maybe she will later on. In any case, this was a happy period in my life. I was working as an interpreter, simultaneous interpreter, for an international meeting in Mexico City. She was working there too. She was in charge of I never knew exactly what she was doing there, but I found her very charming and wonderful, and we started to date, and that was one of the highlights of my life. The conference, as I said, was a total failure, but for me it was a great success. Of course, I worked further as an interpreter in Geneva and in Montreal and in other places. And I realized that the life of an interpreter was very glamorous and interesting. The salaries were fantastic, but at the same time, I didn't want to be an educated parrot, repeating somebody else's words. This is why I decided to become a college and university professor, because at least I had a chance to say what I wanted to say and not to repeat somebody's words in a different language. My wife Gloria was also gifted in languages. She is one of the most intelligent and sensitive persons I know, and she's also a writer. I have lost count of the books that she has written, and she is still writing. I myself have written and published 41 books and 150 or maybe 151 articles in literary magazines or scholarly magazines, etc. So we keep producing. On top of that, my wife is a gifted artist, and we have her works of art all over our house, and we are very happy surrounded by her art. So on the whole, this has been a productive family. However, our greatest successes are biological. These are our children. My mother used to tell me about an anecdote dealing with a Roman lady, the mother of two very distinguished consuls and politicians in Rome. She was invited to a party where all women were glamorously dressed and bejeweled, and the lady of the house asked her to show her jewels to the other members of the party. And then she called her two sons and said, "These are my jewels. I have no others." This is something that my mother was fond of telling us.
Well, if you had to say a few words of wisdom to future generations, what do you think you would say? That's a tough question, I know.
Well, something that is worth considering is the meaning of the word wisdom. This is a word that, like other big words, is very hard to pin down. What does freedom mean? What does courage mean? What does faith mean? These are big words, and we have to grasp them. We have to try to define them for ourselves. The dictionary definitions really don't work very well. For me, wisdom is a combination of balance, harmony, and depth. You have to see that everything is connected somehow, but that the connections are fluid and they keep changing, and you are in the middle of constant changes. This is a balancing act. You shouldn't fall one way or another. You are walking a tightrope, and you're looking around and you see great vistas, you see in depth. At that moment, you begin to hear a very beautiful and harmonic music, and you realize that you are going the right way. But this is so personal that each individual has to find his or her definitions. The only thing I have to say is that it's worthwhile to keep trying until you have something in you that tells you this is it.
If you could tell us in Spanish, if you had a choice and you could come back in another life as some person or thing, what would you come back as?
That's a hard one.
En español.
Me gustaría regresar como alguien. Estoy pensando ahora en algún escritor famoso o algún filósofo que de veras me gustaría haber sido. Pero esto suena muy pretencioso. Vamos a suponer, por ejemplo, que yo digo, me gustaría volver como Sócrates. Bueno, yo no soy Sócrates y sería una aventura maravillosa ser Sócrates. Y sin embargo, me doy cuenta ahora de que Sócrates podía ser algo pesado, de que se peleaba constantemente con su esposa y de que además murió envenenado por el Estado, por su ciudad. Así que, bueno, me gustaría regresar como Sócrates joven y sin todos los problemas que tuvo al final de su vida. Quizás también me gustaría regresar como Mozart y pues también morir joven. Como ya no soy joven, me parece que todo esto es, pues que valdría la pena. Y como no sabemos lo que puede pasar más allá de la muerte, todos podemos simplemente soñar que vamos a regresar como Mozart o como Sócrates, pero en perfecta salud, en plena creatividad y además aplaudidos, porque vamos a imaginarnos que, qué sé yo, vamos a suponer que regresamos ahora como Cervantes o como Van Gogh. Pues entonces diría, es necesario regresar y vivir muchos años. Si Cervantes hubiera vivido bastantes años, habría llegado a conocer la fama, la gloria que tiene ahora. Si Van Gogh pudiera regresar y vivir 150 años, estaría ahora súper millonario en las galerías de arte contemplando sus obras o viendo cómo algunas se venden por 25 millones de dólares. Desde luego, me gustaría regresar de cualquier manera. Como dijo el filósofo alemán Nietzsche, si esta es la vida, que venga otra vez.
Bueno, gracias.
Okay, good.
Very good.
Now I need a glass of water.
Yeah, I was thinking, your voice was giving out.
Yes, my mouth was dry.
Well, we can take a break now and have some lunch if people want. It is time.